Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is JM DeBoard, RadOwl, your resident dream guy. Maybe not dreamy guy, but a guy who knows a lot about dreams. But one of the things, area that I would like to know a lot more about is lucid dreaming, the amazing experience of being lucid in a dream and being able to control your responses to the dream and even program it to have experiences you'd like to have, such as flying. And when I want to know about lucid dreaming, I refer to my friend Stephen Rogat, who you see here on the screen. Stephen is a very experienced lucid dreamer. He's been doing it for decades, has even had some interesting training with this from people that we'll talk about in just a moment. We'll drop names like Carlos Castaneda. Didn't study with him directly, but in an indirect sort of way. Gives you an idea of the approach that Steve brings to this. In the first video, rather than getting into a lot of talk like you see in other lucid dreaming videos about specific techniques, what we would like to do for this first video of what is going to be a series of lessons about lucid dreaming with Steve is we would like to talk about some of the preparation and background processes that go on. And so first, though, I think we need to know about our teacher. So Stephen Rogat at creativethought.org. Stephen is a counselor. He is a shamanic healer. He is a lucid dreamer. And he's a pretty cool guy from Long Island. So other than that, Stephen, can you please tell us about your greatness? Give us your bona fide so that your students know that your teachings are... I don't want to say legit, but, just tell us about yourself.
Well, my greatness, let's not ask my kids. Okay. That's first off. How did you know that, Dad? Just a guess. Okay.
I'm not psychic.
I'm not psychic. No,
or maybe you are.
Yeah. Just a guess, right, Marcia? That's my wife, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I love it because the kids would say, "Well, you have no proof." You have no proof that I said that I did that, and it's like we don't need it. So yeah, I've been a counselor. Oh God, 45 years. And been doing the shamanic work actually since I'm about 16 years old. That dates me since that was 50 years ago.
So around the time that Jimi Hendrix was rocking the world, you were rocking the dream world.
That's
or first
right.
learning to do it. Okay.
Yes, the late 60s, early 70s, but I'm feeling much better now.
The drugs finally wore off.
Hopefully. I think so after 50 years. But I also do hypnotherapy, eye movement therapy, thought field therapy, which is like acupressure, do different types of body work. And I was on the shamanic path, basically starting and during the hypnotherapy and the hypnosis, the self-hypnosis, to reprogram my reality, to reprogram my thoughts, my feelings, whatever else. And I got into lucid dreaming, or what I call active dreaming, more. It wasn't my intention to do it. I just started to do it. And then I needed some advice on what the heck was I doing. So I did get that from a couple of different shamanic practitioners, also from a bunch of books, one of which you mentioned, Carlos Castaneda.
The Art of Dreaming, yes. One of them, at least. He's had others that also mentioned lucid dreaming and the techniques that he was taught by Don Juan, his teacher. So when I say that Steve kind of went a similar path and that he learned lucid dreaming through the shamanic path, whereas there are a lot of people these days who might refer to Stephen LaBerge or Robert Wagner who have gone a different approach, but we're getting to the same place. The
Yeah,
ability to recognize that you're dreaming and then to be able to do some really interesting and fun stuff in your dreams once you have that conscious awareness of the fact that you're dreaming.
and Castaneda, I did follow a lot of his teachings. Not sure if it was book number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Okay. Um, and the interesting thing, now that you mentioned him, Don Juan was his teacher, and Don Juan's arch nemesis was Don Miguel, and I actually did a little studying with Don Miguel's granddaughter out in Colorado.
Well, isn't that interesting?
I thought so. It's like, well, there's some reality. Well,
There's a
I know
name to
that's
drop for you. Yeah.
yeah, that's a questionable word there, reality. Um, but I first got into the active dreaming by reprogramming my dreams, basically, by waking up, interpreting the dream, seeing what I wanted to do with those thoughts and feelings, and bring those thoughts and feelings back into the dream state.
Okay.
And that was how I first got into it. Again, it wasn't with the intention of lucid dreaming. It was with the intention of reprogramming my thoughts and feelings in the dream state.
Okay.
So part of it is the dream interpretation, which I let other people do that on their own, or they might refer to somebody like you. I'm much better at the reprogramming, the dream therapy, rather than the dream interpretation.
So let's say that dream work in general, such as tracking your dreams and paying attention to them, is going to be the first step for anyone who wants to lucid dream. I refer to lucid dreaming as graduate work. I get people who ask me, hey, I want to learn how to lucid dream. And I go, do you journal your dreams? And the answer is often, sometimes. And I go, well, do you think about your dreams and what they mean to you? Do you do any kind of work on them, interpretation, analysis? So I often say, well, why don't we start there? Because you're building a relationship with a side of your mind that has a creative intelligence to it that creates your dreams. And so this isn't just a kind of a mountain to climb. It's a relationship to build. And I say mountain to climb because some people think of lucid dreaming as something to put on the bucket list. Oh, I want to learn how to lucid dream.
Yeah.
I want to learn how to do a backflip. I want to be able to run, 100-yard dash in 12 seconds or whatever. And so they accomplish it, or they try to, but that's what they think about it as, something to conquer. And most people in relationships don't enjoy the idea of being conquered. And you have to think of your dreaming mind as being this, intelligent source that wants to give you these amazing experiences, but it also needs you to approach it with a certain level of we'll just say respect.
Or cooperation, basically.
Cooperation, yeah.
I think of our dreams that we're in relationship with our thoughts, with our feelings, and with our dreams. And do we want to bully our dreams, or do we want to talk to our dreams?
Yes.
Okay. That's the idea. Because anybody can bully on through. And really, there's some herbs. There's even a Herkimer diamond. Have you tried sleeping on a herky?
I've got one under my bed. After you recommended it, I found one. Yeah, I've got one under my bed.
Yeah, I still don't recommend leaving it there for more than a few nights in a row.
Thank you. It needs to be recharged. Yeah, it's been there for months. Okay, thanks for the reminder. All right.
And because it does point towards both worlds, the dream world and waking reality at the same time. And that's what we're trying to do when we reprogram dream, is to bring both worlds into one.
Will you talk more about that? Because I think that this approach to understanding dreams and then graduating to lucid dreaming also begins with understanding that your waking world, this universe that we live in, is responsive and intelligent and aware, kind of like the source, or maybe is the source behind dreams, is
Uh-huh.
also it's responsive to you. It's kind of a co-creative process, and that what we're talking about when we lucid dream really begins in your waking life. So can you begin there and talk about that relationship between the dream world and the waking world?
Well, when you say the lucid dreams start in the waking world, that's where we have our consciousness. So we want to bring more awareness. I want to say to bring more awareness to, again, our thoughts, our feelings, our body, our surroundings, just to bring more awareness. And with that increase in awareness, then we can also bring that increase in awareness into the dream state. I know, and that's why I really like the self-hypnosis. Well, I'm a trance junkie. I admit it freely. Okay.
Steve likes to go into trance, which is getting into a state of mind where you're very much turned within yourself and in a very peaceful, Zen, zoned kind of state.
Just to be aware. So I been doing self-hypnosis since I'm 16. Then I became a heavy-duty not a Buddhist, a Hindu, on around the age of 19 with Transcendental Meditation and whatever else, which is a type of mindfulness meditation. You focus on one thing and then you're aware of everything. And then I guess it was on around the age of 23 when I thought I was too happy, so I became a Buddhist.
And
The whole
Steve recovered from that, by the way. He's a
That's right. I'm
recovering
a
Buddhist now.
recovering Buddhist. But the pain, death, suffering, it's all part of life, yada, yada. And that's
Uh,
nice. Um, I'd rather not go there, but, I accept it as part. But again, it was the mindfulness meditation, just focusing in on one thing. And whether it's the breath rising and falling with the abdomen, or whether it's a couple of feet above a candle, or whether it's just being aware of the breath coming and going. And the interesting thing is then whenever any thoughts or feelings or body sensations that come up, you don't stay attached to them. That's the non-attachment thing. And you say, okay, that's just my thoughts or my feelings or my body just causing a distraction, and I can just get back to my focus. In other words, then I'll look at it this way. If I don't have to do something about everything that I'm aware of, then I can be aware of a whole lot more because I don't have to do anything with it.
ah, okay.
And that's the mindfulness. That's just my thought. That's nice. I'm not attached to that. I can just let that go. And it brings about just a deeper state of awareness. Even after 3 days or 3 weeks of doing it, I tell people, you just go for it 5 to 60 minutes once or twice a day.
Or 3 times, yes.
Um,
So it's
Not
just
very
do
good
it.
stuff,
Yeah. You
not
just
very.
do it. It's anything that makes you aware. And I had a friend ask me about this the other night. He likes to do jujitsu wrestling, and he
Ah,
says that for him is his meditation time because he's very singularly focused on what he's doing. Also a very high level of awareness because he's,
that's right.
wrestling strong people who can twist him up into a pretzel if he's not, you know,
If he's not
on his
aware,
game. So
that's
being
right.
aware is anything that is keeping you focused in a, I don't want to say gentle. It's focused in sort of a way that helps you to relax and be calm. Because my friend says when he does jujitsu that he's doing breathing exercises, he's keeping his
That's right.
mind clear, he's doing these things. If you get too tense, then you can't respond as well. So
Yeah, that's the same with Tai Chi. I know one of my teachers once said, anybody can be comfortable in a comfortable position.
Yeah, well,
But it takes a
yeah.
little bit of mastery to be comfortable in an uncomfortable position.
Uh,
Okay. In other
yeah.
words, to keep that awareness of your surroundings and everything, even though you're focused on one thing, you know?
Which the
So,
physical discipline of yoga began thousands of years ago as a way of preparing your body to sit for hours in meditation. So you would stretch out and limber up and do all that, and then you would do your meditation. But if you needed to do the yoga exercises first, because your body otherwise would start cramping up and getting really uncomfortable after sitting in lotus position for, however long.
yes.
So,
Well, it's interesting because the yogi in itself is loosely defined as a connection to spirit. So when you're doing the yogic breathing, you're directing your awareness towards spirit. Well, the spirit meaning the wholeness or everything or whatever you want to call it. So
all right.
again, increasing that awareness.
Okay,
Um,
so let's say that this is kind of guideline number one for our lucid dreamers is they're going to practice awareness. They can have times during the day which they can set aside to do something that is meditative, trance-like, yoga, jujitsu.
that's
They
right.
can focus on their breathing. They can do tai chi. They can take a walk, just so long as they're clearing their mind and getting into a state where they're aware of their surroundings and out of the thought processes that tend to run all the time and consume our attention. And we want to allow them to go into the background and then and let this calm awareness kind of come forward. And the reason why they're doing this is because they're going to bring that conscious awareness
Awareness
into the
into
dream
the dream
state.
state.
So this is
Well,
how the dream state and the conscious state are connecting with each other is that the person you are in your conscious state is the person that you're going to bring into the dream state, which isn't usually the case. Usually you are kind of a dream version of yourself that is more instinctive, reacts more on emotion, and is less rational.
I might even say scattered.
Scattered. Okay, depending on the person, right? But yeah, so that this is why you're training yourself in your waking life, beginning with awareness, so
Well,
that you can bring it into your dream life.
when we talk about the not being attached to, oh, that's just my thought, or that's just a feeling, or that's just my body, it helps you to step back instead of being fully participating, in your thoughts, your feelings, your body. It develops more of a witness state. And that's what we need to
There.
develop in
Yep.
order to say, in order to bring that into the dream and saying, oh, I'm dreaming. This is a dream. Okay, it means it requires a step back. It's interesting because when I again I got into this over a period of time, and of course when it happened like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I would wake up, and right then and there, in the middle of the night or whenever I woke up, I would interpret the dream, see what the limiting thought was, then take a look at the dream and see where the dream went south, see where the dream sort of messed up a little bit, or where
Uh,
there was a total shift. And I'd use that same symbology from the dream and the reprogrammed thought and bring that into the dream state. And the sooner, and this is what I realized after doing it for a while, the sooner you go through that whole process, interpret the dream, get to the limitation, reprogram the dream, and program it with limitless or with something less limiting, the quicker you do it. I guess my first waking dream experience was in the dream itself. I sat back at my desk, I interpreted the dream, got to the thought, and said maybe the dream would be better if it went this way, and went right back into the dream without ever waking up. I did the dream interpretation, the limiting thought, reprogrammed it all in the dream.
Okay, so let's summarize this for students is that they're going to find something in their dreams that could have, we'll call it a turning point. It was a place in
Yes.
the dream where they encountered a problem or a difficulty or a situation, a fear, something like that. And they are first probably going to need to start identifying this. And after they wake up, they journal their dreams and they look for some place in the dream where they went, something happened there that I would like to have gone in a different
That's right.
direction. If I
Right
could be
there.
the author of the dream, let's have a little rewrite of the dream. Let's go back to this point and say, well, instead of this happening, let me allow that to happen because it would be a more enjoyable experience or whatever their motivation is, but they want to change that. So they're going to start off just by
Well,
using their imagination with this, and then they can start becoming aware in the dream for when something happens in the dream where they go, I would rather have this turn out differently. I'd like this dream to go
yeah,
in a different
let's
direction.
tweak it right there, right there.
Now you,
And that's important because again, yeah, the dream might be going along. Yeah, it's nice. And then all of a sudden, like you said, something turns it. Something turns it limiting or something happens. I, um, I remember I was working with a shaman and I used to have a history of being chased in my dream.
yeah.
And I think a lot of people do, actually. But I was being chased, and I would find different ways to protect myself. Okay, I mean, so first I'd run, but that was never ending. So then I would turn and fight, and then because I learned jujitsu and judo and aikido, and I would waste them away, and then it got to the point where in one dream there was actually an army after me, right? And
Uh,
I was standing on the hillside, and bolts of lightning were coming out of my hand, and I was decimating the whole army. And it's like, you want to know that's still running and fighting. Okay, so then I had this dream, and this is why I went to the shaman. I said, I had this dream where somebody was coming at me with this syringe about this big, full of green goo, right? And I was running, and he was going to catch me, and I was running. But you know how that is. The faster you run, the closer they get anyway, so it's not going to end. So he had me imagine, he said, well, what if you let him catch up? I said, let him catch up? Okay. That syringe is a mile long filled with green goo. Let him catch up and you're totally safe. And so that's what I did when he basically sent me into that dream state. But I can let him catch up and I'm totally safe. I can let him catch up and I'm totally safe. I had that dream. Somebody was chasing me with this big syringe, this band. I can let him catch up and I'm totally safe. So I actually stopped right there in the middle of the dream. He caught up to me and he injected me with that syringe. But by that time, the syringe was only like about that big.
yeah.
And he said, that's it? That's all you got? That's just like my mother used to do when I was growing up. And it was like I woke up in that dream, again, interpreting the dream and saying, well, what does my mother have to do with this green goo and the injection
So
and the
your mom chased you
violation?
around with a 3 foot long needle full of green goo. I think you need to
No,
clarify there.
but she would always jab me. She would always jab me, have these one-line jabs.
Oh,
Okay. And I was
yes.
like,
Okay.
yeah. So I was running from the jabs. And that sickness, the green goo, and it was like, oh no, I can't. And it's like, I finally said, well, what the heck? Okay, that's it. And so that was one of my first waking dreams as well, which was I can bring this awareness into my dream state. I can bring that in. Okay, and that was 25, 30, 35, somewhere around there years ago.
Okay.
And of course, once you can do it once, then you can do it again.
So when that syringe shrinks in the dream, it's showing that you had confronted a fear within yourself, something that had been
That's
programmed from a young age. It was probably largely unconscious or subconscious as it started off, and gets, and you're fighting it in your dreams, and it's just getting closer to you. It's just getting stronger because it's some part of yourself that's been lost, and it's trying to catch up with you. Yeah.
Trying to catch up to me.
Because it wants to reintegrate into you. We would say in sort of Jungian terms that this is a split off part of yourself that is wanting to reintegrate back into the personality. But first, the personality has to acknowledge it and welcome it home. Because to this point, this thing, it was full of all these fears from the past. So of course you're running from it. You don't want this because it's coming with a load of pain and other things that are coming with it. But you as a conscious being had to say, well, look, this is actually me. Yeah, it's part of me that was hurt, but it needs to come home. And now I've gone through what I need to do to be able to welcome it home, rather than try to reject it or fight it or run from it or whatever. Rather than
trying to reject it or run from it, or hide it or bury it or whatever else. And I even tell people, I said, whatever's going to happen in the dream, if it does reflect something from your past, it's not going to be as bad as the original experience. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And since you've been through that, you can go through this. And again, it's I'm totally safe. I'm totally safe. I remember the first time I died in my dreams, but I didn't wake up. Lots of times I would die in my sleep, but I'd automatically wake up. And I think it was something having to do with a ship and water. I got a lot of water stuff going on, but the pirates made me jump off the gangplank, and I hit the water and I was drowning and I was dying. But again, I had already programmed that I can let this happen and I'm totally safe from a previous dream. And then I realized that I was under the water and I was aware, so therefore I wasn't dead and I was breathing water. And since I can't really breathe water, I must be dreaming. And since I'm dreaming, I can do anything. So then I went to visit my sister in Florida, did a little bit of healing there. Actually, she rejected the healing, which automatically snapped me out of my dream state because I didn't like it.
So Steve is talking about in a dream state, going and visiting people and helping them with healing. He's doing his thing as a shamanic healer to help them in a dream state, which he has told me about some of his experiences. And we did an experiment together some time back where we intended to meet together in a dream. And I did all my preparation and woke up in the morning with my journal ready to remember Steve from my dreams, drew a blank. And then sometime later, soon after, Steve sends me his journal from the morning where he had 3 dreams featuring a guy that looked a lot like me. And he had elements. We didn't meet at the gardens, the Duke Rose Gardens. We were planning on meeting there in the dream state. We didn't end up meeting there, but we ended up talking about a lot of things, which actually led to doing this together because Steve asked the dream intelligence whether we could do this work together. Mm-hmm. But he also picked up on the things that I had thought about very strongly before I went to bed, which was, one, if I do this kind of work, that it needs to come from the heart, because I'm kind of a head intellectual oriented person. I absorb information and knowledge, and a lot of the things that I do are head based. And I was telling myself it needs to be heart based. And Steve picked up on that in the dream state. He said that I was going on and on about how this has to come from the heart. And the other thing is he said that everything, like the landscape and the people and everything, was yellow. And that before I went to bed, I was doing a very strong third chakra based energy exercise of pulling up energy from the solar plexus, which is associated with yellow. And I was envisioning yellow in my mind because I was trying to pull that energy into the dream state. So there were other overlaps, but these were things that Steve reported without me telling him anything about my experience before he told me about his. And the amazing details that he pulled out of it told me that even if I couldn't remember sharing a dream with him, my brother man and I actually shared a dream
Yeah,
with each other, and we did it
we did.
intentionally, which was
And a lot of
pretty darn
times, and
cool.
I think that's wonderful to do, with somebody that you feel safe with and somebody that, maybe it's a partner, maybe it's a friend, but most people will share the theme of the dream, which is more the feelings and the thoughts, not necessarily the direct symbology, although, I did get the yellow and I did see you flying. And I remember you relating afterwards, you were landing, or vice versa. I saw you landing and you were flying. Um, by the way, I was at Duke Gardens and you never showed.
I stood him up on our dream date.
I know. Oh, good. I can let this happen and I'm totally safe. I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not like you couldn't go off and do something else that was lots of fun. Like, you're already lucid in a dream. So, I don't show up. So you can go off and have some adventures that you would like to have, which is also recommended. We will talk more about this in another lesson where we can specifically program dreams so that when you do become lucid, you know what you want to do. Because
That's right.
it's very easy to get pulled back into ordinary dreaming. And some of what we've been talking about here is also going to benefit you when you get into the lucid state, because you're going to be able to step back from the dream, because
You
it has
witness.
this magnetic pull that wants to pull you back into ordinary dreaming. And you, as the lucid dreamer, need to be able to kind of step back from what you're seeing and experiencing and just be aware. So the next step then is to have something that you want to do while you are in the
Yes.
dream state. There is something that Steve recommended to me, which was to see your hands and pay attention. It gives you something to focus on. So when you realize that you're dreaming, or that you've looked at your hands, and it can make you aware of the
Uh-huh.
fact that you're dreaming, or you've already become lucid, and then you go, okay, let me look at my hands. One of the things I like to do is put my finger into my palm to tell me whether or not I'm dreaming, and it's kind of a grounding exercise. It makes me aware
Yes.
of my body.
For you.
For me specifically.
Yeah.
And I told Steve, I've been working on trying to become lucid in dreams. It's not the easiest thing for me to do. I'm not a natural at it, but I want to learn it. It's a skill. Anybody can learn it. And the first thing that I did in the dream, as I said, wow, I think I'm dreaming. I'm pretty sure I'm dreaming. Okay, let me look at my hands. Okay, and I pulled up my hand and I said, well, if I'm dreaming, I can put my finger through my palm. Well, no, I pushed my finger into my palm and it bounced back by rubber. But one of the things I noticed is that I didn't have any physical sensation. There was,
Uh-huh.
so now I
Yeah,
have a
no
goal.
feeling.
The next time that I'm in the dream and I go, okay, I'm lucid dreaming, let me do the finger in the palm. And I want to actually feel this. I want to feel my palm. I want to feel my finger. So it's given me something
Well,
that will come forward in my mind in the dream state, so I can stay focused on doing something rather than just kind of going, hey, cool, I'm lucid, and then you're
that's
right
right.
back into ordinary dreaming again.
Well, I I relate a little bit to Castaneda too, as we're talking, because there's a veil. I mean, he calls it a veil or a mist, a veil between one awareness, the waking awareness, and the dream awareness, or the one reality and the next reality. And we need to go through that veil to get to the other side. And so it's interesting, as you're saying, I want to push my finger through that, but it wouldn't go through it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you woke up enough to realize that the veil was there, but you didn't have the control to go through the veil.
Okay, yeah.
Uh,
So
uh,
part of what we're talking about doing in waking life is also going to make you more aware in the dream, because you're becoming more aware of yourself, of your environment. You're able to step back. You're doing the simple sort of meditation or focusing exercises
mhm.
that are going to train your mind so that when you get into the dream state, you can be more aware of what is happening, and then you can engage with
And
the environment in a way that
that's
brings
right.
other senses into the play. One of the things, there's a guy, his name is Michael Raduga. He teaches something called the phase. And it's just his term for lucid dreaming that also leads to out of body experience. But it begins
Okay.
with lucid dreaming. And he says one of the first things that you can do is go and look for something to eat. Think of something. What would you like to eat in a dream? It could be an apple, it could be a steak, or
Uh-huh.
it could be a diamond, whatever. But you get to do it in a dream. And he says, go and fully have the experience of the sensory. You pick up the apple and look at it, and you see all the texture on the skin. You put it in your mouth and start chewing on it. It's not necessarily going to taste like an apple, but what you want to do is engage your sense of taste in the dream, which it turns out
Well,
that very few people do in ordinary dreaming. Very few people report taste as part of the sensory experience of having a dream. So,
well, to that, just like before you go to sleep, you might want to just meditate for a minute on your hand. Okay.
mhm.
So to that, I might say a person might want to eat an apple for dinner and be totally aware of that apple
Yeah.
and then bring that sensation into the dream. Um,
Okay. Yep.
and it's hilarious that you bring up something to eat because I don't know if I emailed you my dream. I was on a cleansing diet, a real restricted diet for a
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
And I had this dream, and there was no grains, no bread, or anything allowed on the diet. But I had this dream that I made this perfect piece of toast. If you can imagine the perfect piece of toast, right? Oh, just
Yeah.
golden brown, little crispy on the outside, still moist on the inside. Oh, and I lathered it with some olive oil and and it was like, and that was the dream, and it was like, oh, this isn't on my diet. This bread isn't on my diet. And it's like, wait a second, folks, I'm dreaming. I can eat this piece of bread without ruining my diet. And it was the best piece of bread that I had ever had. So, involving the taste and the smell and bringing the senses in.
The full
Um,
sensory experience in the dream. And by the way, folks, people who are on diets report dreaming about food and food related ideas much more than, sort of the averages from thousands of dream reports. And we can see the content
yes,
that's usually in people's dreams. People who are on diets tend to dream about food a lot more. So,
I know. Well, some
no
people,
surprise there, right? But it's
yeah, one part
interesting.
of dreaming is to release tension, and so I released that tension. Oh,
Well,
oh, and
well,
then
let
the
me.
next night I was levitating. There was a hot dog, a bun, some sauerkraut, mustard, and ketchup, and it's like, oh well, three of those things aren't on my diet, and I hope I get to put that all together and eat it before I wake up. So all that was on my diet,
Yeah, yeah. So you're
Phew.
you're rewarding yourself, and or not rewarding, but in the dream state, you're giving yourself something that you're not able to have in your waking state, and maybe it helped that part of you when you were awake that was having food cravings or something. Maybe by experiencing it in a dream, it was helping you to have more resilience when it came to
It
sticking
it
to this,
released, yes, it
this diet.
released that tension.
Okay,
It
very
released.
interesting.
Although the next day I went out and bought some hot dogs, all natural, of course.
Yeah, yeah, little Applegate Farms or something,
You
uh,
know,
no, no.
minus the bun, minus the sauerkraut, minus the ketchup and the mustard, but the hot dogs were great. And when I
And
broke the diet, when I finally went off the diet after 28 days, well, 30 technically. Okay, God, I did it for 30, not 28. You're darn straight I had some mustard with those hot dogs.
good, good, because mustard, because hot dog without mustard is there's just there's a
it's
crime there. There's something wrong with
it's a
that.
sin. It's a sin, but but I can have a hot dog without mustard and I'm totally safe. I can have
Well,
um
let's talk about the next thing. We've talked about being aware and paying attention, and then finding a turning point, which was a point in the dream where you could take it in the direction lucidly to go off in the
yes.
direction you want to go. There's one other thing that you've talked about with me previously, which is being able to respond, or responsibility. We put the
Responsibility.
little hyphen in there between the two words because what you're talking about is the ability to respond is also going to carry over into your dream life. So can you talk about that?
The responsibility, well, I want to say, just like a lot of times people say, and you might say, that all parts of the dream are yourself, are you. They're just reflecting different parts of you. Well, what about my waking life? What if I take responsibility for my feelings, for my thoughts? Well, I'm without the blame. Okay, so that's the non attachment or the witness. Without the blame, okay, I created this situation. I feel this way because of something that I created or attracted in my life. And so I can own it. And once I own it, what can I do about it to change it? If these are my feelings, what can I do to change my feelings, not somebody else? If these are my thoughts, what can I do to change my thoughts? So that's the responsibility. First, take the hyphen out and call it responsibility for our own thoughts and feelings, and then put the hyphen back in and say, now what do I want to do with it? Okay, so oh, I'm powerless to do anything, which isn't very responsible. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's a catch-22 there too, though, because when we're under tension, one of the things that we want to do is actually be more aware. Even if it's out of fear, we want to be more aware so that thing doesn't bring any more tension. Or when something is threatening, whether it's the stock market or whether it's, all the pesticides or whatever else, when something is threatening us, or if I'm powerless to do anything about it, then I'm not responsible. Well, what can I do about it? Again, let me take a look at that. How can I respond to that? Whether it's to other people or whether it's to my own thoughts and feelings. Again, there's a definition, Serge King, a Hawaiian shaman. He defines a shaman as a healer of relationships. And again, if we have a relationship with everything, not only other people, but ourselves, and
Ourselves. Yep.
we have a relationship with our thoughts and our feelings and our dreams. And let me talk to that. Let me separate enough to be able to talk with it and integrate it. It's interesting because I did have a dream buddy several decades ago, and I ended up in his dream, and I knew it was his dream. And we would share dreams sometimes consciously and intentionally, but that one night I knew that it was his dream. And I was flying above the ceiling, and he was lusting after this hot girl,
Uh-huh.
this hot girl. And then actually one of his guides showed up in the dream, floating next to me, and says, "It's not really a girl. you know. It's
Yeah.
not really a girl.
It's a
It's
projection of his
actually,
imagination.
that's right. It's actually one of his older teachers, but he's hung up on, on the lower chakras, and so that's how he's interpreting it. And I talked to him, and I tried to get his attention during the
Uh,
dream
uh-huh.
and failed because, there's me and then there's this hot chick, right? But I talked to him the next day and I said, I was in one of your dreams last night. He says, yeah, you were. So I said, no, I was in one of your dreams last night and I was told to watch it and share with you what the dream was about. He says, well, yeah, I was wondering what you were doing up there. He saw me hovering around the ceiling, but ignored me.
Uh-huh.
And I told him, and, I told him about it, about the guide, and about this was knowledge that you're chasing after, and this is guidance that you're chasing after, and it wasn't this hot little chick, And he totally said, "No, you're wrong."
Oh man.
Well, hey, right? We can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Well, it gives us something to work with, is what I would say. Is we could then start working with it with like active imagination dialogue or some kind of gestalt. Get the dream symbol to speak for itself in a kind of a therapeutic environment, and
Yes.
then maybe maybe he would be able to see through the skin and what was really there. Or sometimes we just want to hold on to our illusions because they're more comfortable and enjoyable.
See
And,
through the skin. That's very funny.
Isn't that? Yeah. Oh man.
See through the veil. To see through the veil.
All right. So that means if we are response able, then we can also see through the veil, because we can respond in a way that is not programmed by our expectations. When I
Yes.
push my finger into my palm, I'm expecting to meet resistance. And if I brought that into the dream state, even though I was lucid, I still brought the expectation that I would meet resistance. See, I had done this 100 times before I was able to do it in a dream. And every time I did it, I met resistance. So that was the expectation I had in the dream. If I'd been able to stick my finger through my palm, that would have been against any kind of expectation.
Yeah,
And
so
but the response that I'm getting from the dream is what I was expecting, and just being more responsible for one's self, your thoughts, your feelings, and your expectations, your values, your ideals, your beliefs, everything, just being more responsible will make you better able to respond in your waking life and also in your dream life. Am I summing this up in a way that does it justice?
yes, yes. Well, and to add to that, it's I can be more aware and I'm totally safe.
Why would someone not feel safe if they're more aware?
Well, because then they're aware of the past and the possible future and the fears and the thoughts and the feelings and
and now they have to be more responsible for it, because sometimes it's easier to just be unconscious about all this stuff and allow life to happen to you rather than you, kind of taking more control. And I don't like the word control. Taking more engagement with your life and giving it more direction, conscious direction, and saying, these are the things I the kind of person I want to be, the kind of life I want to have.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people these days, it's very hard to do that, because it seems like they would rather just think that everything that happens is random, or that it's fated and that they don't have any control over it, because then taking control over something, and I'll use that word, or giving it direction consciously, is a hard thing to do.
It is. It is a hard thing. If I'm aware of something, but then I might have to do something about it. And if I don't know if I can do something about it, then I'd rather not be aware of it.
Man.
Okay. I mean,
all right. Goosebump time there.
I have some people, some clients say, well, I know I want to make a change, but I don't know what I want. And it's like, well, because maybe that person hasn't given themselves permission to go for what they want, so they don't even know what they want because, oh my God, they might have to go for it. Okay.
Yep.
You know, what if I took responsibility for something, but I don't want to take responsibility for it, so I'm just not going to see it, you know? I'm just not going to see it.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
attracted somebody to rip me off. Well, he didn't, but he participated greatly there.
All right, let's hear about that.
It was somebody who messed up. I hired him to line my well, and he messed it up. And then he said, "Well, I don't know what's going on, you know. I don't know what's going on 100 feet under the ground. How do I know?" I was like, "Well, you've been doing this for 30 years. Maybe, you know." But I attracted him because I ignored my own guidance of picking somebody else. I was going somebody. So I was like, and then I wanted to blame him or whatever else. And yet, wait a second, I'm the one who chose him. Okay, so that's the responsibility. I'm the one who chose him to make this mess and leave me with this big mess, you know? So
Yeah.
it's it was taking responsibility for it finally. At which point, then he actually gave us a water filter, like a $2,000 water filter, which we would have needed anyway, regardless of what he did, because one of the pipes was corroding, and we weren't aware of it. So we actually attracted this guy to totally mess up, so we could be aware. Yeah, I mean, it was like but while I was still into blaming him and threatening lawsuit and whatever else, we got nowhere. I got more upset, and it's like, wait a second. Every part of my reality is me. I attracted him. Why did I attract that?
And by working through your own thorny issue with this, and getting back into the flow of things, it ended up leading to the resolution of a problem you didn't even know that you had.
That's right.
So
I can let it be, and I'm totally safe. I can let this guy be in my life, and I'm totally safe. And all of a sudden, things just opened up grandly.
So this is the ability to respond in a way that is that even though it might seem like there's things that happen in life that, you know, the world is out to screw you. People are, you know, not doing their jobs. You pay for something and you don't get it.
Which is true.
And which is true. Yes.
But I'm totally safe.
But I'm totally safe, which is your ability to be able to respond to situations that are, you know, parts of them are beyond your control, but your response is always within your control, which is going to carry over into the dream world, right?
Dream world. Exactly.
And it will make you better able to respond to the things that happen in your dreams. For one, to make you become conscious of the fact that you're dreaming, because you're responding to something that happens in the dream and you go, wait a minute, I must be dreaming because, you know, the hot dog and the bun and the mustard are all floating right here in front of me, you know, Aladdin style. And, you know, I must be dreaming. And that it's also going to make you able to respond in the dream state to next go, well, I think I would like to have that hot dog, or I think I would like to take flight. I think I'd like to go visit my sister in Florida.
Yes.
I think I would like to, you know, go revisit that vacation, you know, that beach that I was on. And I want to go back and completely recreate that environment. You don't even have to recreate it. You just imagine it in your mind. You request it. You say, hey, I want to be back on that beach again, feeling the sun, sitting there on that beach chair, you know, my feet in the sand, and I'm totally relaxed. And then the dreaming source says, what, Steve? Request granted. You know, this is what I've heard from advanced lucid dreamers is that all they got to do, it's like the holodeck on Star Trek, is you say, you know, okay, dream, give me this or give me that. And as long as it's good for you in some way, or maybe not, I don't know, maybe it will give you all your wishes, but that basically that you are able to create this simply by requesting it. You can have anything you want to in a dream state. Is that been your experience?
I liked how you said requesting it. Instead of bullying your way through.
Because the dreaming mind is an intelligent source that Carl Jung said is the mind of nature itself, going all the way back to the origins of our species. So
Yes.
thinking that you know more than it, or that you have more power than
No
it,
way.
is yeah. That what did
Well,
what did the dinosaur, the T-Rex, say to the mouse when the mouse said, "Hey, buddy, you'll do what I want or else." I mean, and
hmm
I use dinosaur in the sense that, yes, the dreaming mind, there is a part of us, the mind, that is gone, goes all the way back. Carl Jung actually said that it might even go back to before mammals emerged from the oceans, that there were actually parts of the mind that go all the way back to hundreds of millions of years ago in evolution, and that it has
the
been passed
amoeba.
down. Yeah. Yeah. So all of that experience has been passed down to us, and it can take form in your dream.
Well,
It is actually part of your dreaming mind, is actually connected with this part of you that's connected all the way back into prehistory. It's the mind of
well,
nature itself, as Jung says.
but one thing and one step further, it's connected to everything, which means it's also connected to our outer world,
Yeah.
also what we're attracting in our outer world.
Yeah. And you'll notice that as you start getting into the flow of things and you have a good relationship with that part of your mind, that you'll start having synchronicities that happen in your outer world. For
I,
example, Steve and I did a little thing together, a shamanic ritual, and it involved crows. And then as I was coming out of his office, he lives in North Carolina, outside of Raleigh, in a rural area, and there were crows everywhere. They were in the trees and in the bushes and flying overhead, and they're cawing and they're doing all of this stuff. And Steve just kind of looks around and laughs because he's expected this so much. It just happens all the
yeah.
time, that nature, that the world actually responded to what we did internally. The world responded to it. And so these sorts of synchronicities, which was another term that Carl Jung coined, to describe a phenomenon where the outer world responds to the inner world and vice versa. You're going to
I,
start seeing these things happen in your life, or you're going to become more aware that they are already happening. As you get further into these practices, you're paying more attention to what's going on. You're feeling responsibility for yourself
yes.
and your life, and responding in a way that shows that responsibility.
Well,
You're
and
paying attention. And so your world is going to respond to you in outer ways as things change for you internally, where you are getting yourself into the right states so that you can regularly lucid dream. Is that fair
well,
to say?
and so yeah, it's just the flip side of the coin. Then, as I was talking about earlier, waking up in the dream itself, interpreting the dream, reprogramming the dream, and then getting back into the dream. And the quicker you can do that, well, what if we do that in our waking life as well? Oh, wait a second, I attracted this person for a reason. Okay. And how can I respond to that? And then getting back into it and responding.
And
So,
Robert Wagner, who's very well known for
yeah,
lucid dreaming, wrote the book Lucid Dreaming, Plain and Simple, and another one that's even more famous. One of the things that he says he got in the practice of doing was anytime something happened to him that was a less than enjoyable experience, he would ask himself, why did I attract this to myself? What is it that I need to know here? But why
yes.
did I attract this to myself? Because
Or,
you find out
or,
that the things that seemingly happen randomly, such as calling this guy to work on your well, and things get all screwed up, but you would, once those kinds of things happen, you become responsible by always asking, what is it that in me that
that's
is
right.
attracting these things to me? Um,
Yes. What am I getting out of this? And
e-
that's one of my teachers once said, the end result is your best teacher.
yeah,
What did I get out of this? Well, that's why I attracted it.
yeah,
Um, and even if it's negative stuff, well, I didn't attract this so I can get stuck in the negative stuff. I attracted this so I can get above the negativity, or or heal a part of myself. There was, I don't know, that article that I had written for Lucid Dreaming magazine.
Lucid Dreaming Experience, highly recommended, Robert Wagner's magazine, and Steve submitted an article about the experience with the bees, which I'm looking at the time. I think we'll have to save that full dream because it takes a little telling.
It was a blast because of some additional things that happened. I even just last year, something amazing with the bees, Well,
bees. Go ahead, since you've gotten into it. Why don't you tell the story? Because it's fascinating, and it did. The bees. You started having experiences with bees first in your dreams, and then it started happening in your waking life, almost instantaneously, or at least in a very short period of time.
Instantaneously,
and it was a test for you in a way. Go ahead.
I had a bee phobia for years. I mean, a bee phobia. I was even speaking to a therapist who said, I think I have a bee phobia. And why? Well, a bee landed on the console in the car, in the middle of the car. And, it's like, and I freaked out and I actually jumped out of the car. And we were only going.
Moving. Yep.
Yeah, but it was only going 2 or 3 miles an hour, I walk faster than that. She says, well, that's not necessarily a phobia. And I said, I was driving. Okay. Says, okay.
All right, maybe phobia. Yes.
So one dream that I had, I was going through a tunnel, not necessarily through the palm of my hand, but through a tunnel. And all of a sudden, the bees started chasing me. And they just, the buzzing, and I couldn't run fast enough. And they finally surrounded me. And then I called in the wind and the lightning and the sun and the rain and just blew them all away. That was when I was into the fighting part of my life, Mm-hmm. And so then I programmed it. I can let them catch up and I'm totally safe. I can let them catch up and I'm totally safe. It was fear of change, basically. The tunnel going from one place to another. To me, it was the fear of change. And then I had another dream. Then I was living in Boulder at the time, and the dream was that I was in Colorado Springs, where I was thinking of moving, but I didn't really like it. And I was at a party, and in the dream, I walked out of the party, and everything was the same as the first dream. The air, the smell, the mountains in the background. It was like, it sort of woke me up. Wait, I've been here before. And as I'm looking around, I tripped, and right in front of me is this bee's nest. And in the dream,
hundreds of bees, right? And they're getting angry, and
right.
Your worst nightmare is now coming true.
I remember this. I can take a deep breath and relax, and I'm totally safe.
Yes.
And that's what I did in the dream state, and it's like, all right, I brought it home. And there I was. So actually the next day, 2 bees while I was driving flew into my shirt. I took a deep breath, unbuttoned my shirt and let them out. That was twice it happened. Mm-hmm. And another time later that day, a bee flew up my shorts. Well, I didn't really take off my shorts, but I flapped them a little bit until he got out. I took a deep breath. I can let this happen. I'm totally safe. And of course, then the dream, I ended up moving to Colorado Springs a couple of months later because I was totally self-employed down there. I had a job. I was totally self-employed. I had somebody that offered me a room in her apartment, and I had somebody organizing classes for me and someone else organizing privates. And it's like, okay, I guess I'm going down to Colorado Springs. But last year, I was on my way to get some nose surgery, some nasal surgery. On the way to surgery, right? A half an hour before the knife, I stopped for gas and got stung by a bee. The same type of bee that's always with me. And that wasn't in the article. And it was like, so then I was like, oh, damn, right on the way, what is that, insult to injury? I'm going for an operation, I get stung by a bee or whatever else. So when I finally got past it after the surgery and I came home and looked up, well, bee stings, you know what they do? They put your body into an autoimmune response. They basically turbocharge to get rid of toxins and inflammation. And what are the
Yeah.
two things that I needed going into surgery was the ability to get rid of toxins and inflammation. It's like, oh, thank you.
So that bee was doing you a favor, and somehow, somewhere, something knew that this was going to help you.
That was the reprogramming the subconscious, or that's connected to everything. And
Wow.
reality said, oh, well, let's do this. I still killed the bee, by the way. He stung me, little bastard.
Well, there's kind of an automatic reaction when something like that
You
happens,
got it.
Yeah.
You know.
All right, so
Um,
let's summarize what we've learned here, and I want to start off with we talked about being aware, and this is a practice of cultivating awareness. Some people might call it mindfulness. There are many different
yeah,
ways of doing it. You mentioned transcendental meditation, which is repeating a mantra
yes.
or a line,
Or
something that's going to focus the
Vipassana.
mind.
Vipassana
There's
is watching the breath.
watching the breath. It could be I have audio from it's called Sacred Acoustics, and it's
Ah,
20 minutes of these monks chanting along with binaural beats and stuff. It's really immersive. And all I got to do is use my ears to listen closely to the music. In 20
oh,
minutes,
that
I can
sounds
completely change
wonderful.
my. I'll send you the file, man. It's pretty trippy. So just something that's going to cultivate your awareness. And then it's also paying attention. It begins in your waking life of just noticing what's going on around you, getting out of your head a little, the trains of thought that tend to occupy us. It's okay. We're going to be occupied at times, but we want to bring ourselves back to
Hmm.
that calm, aware a state of paying attention as much as we can. That also includes paying attention to your body. And so listening to the messages of the body, noticing when it's saying something to you. The other day, I sat there in lotus position as I was working so long until my foot fell asleep on me. And then I stood up. I was in a chair. I like to do lotus in the chair so that
Uh-huh.
my hips are open up and everything, because I'll sit there at my computer for long periods working. Well, awareness. I wasn't being aware of my body to the point where my foot was almost to the point where I could touch it and I felt nothing, because there's so much blood flow had been lost to my foot. And that meant that
Yeah.
I'd sat there for about a half an hour longer than I needed to be before moving my muscles a little bit. So let's say paying attention, being responsible, and that's responsible for yourself, but the ability to respond. This is going to carry over into your dream life.
Yes.
And then the last thing about finding a turning point, where something that happened in the dream, where you can reflect on it and go, I could have been aware there. That would have been a great point to
It
become
would have
lucid,
been.
because I could have turned the dream off in another direction. So let's
That's right. But
recommend that everybody who's listening, until the next lesson between now and then, journal your dreams, because as we said to
yes,
start off with,
journal.
just awareness of your dreams and engaging with your dreams is really step number one. But you're going to find something that happened in the dream where you could, next time that happens, you can say, I can go in a different direction. For Steve, it was the next time I dream about a swarm of bees or a bee, I
I
will remember that I'm safe. I will take a deep breath. Even
totally
though you're
safe.
dreaming, you're still relaxing yourself. And he has the ability to respond in a way that's not just blind fear and running and terror because he has a phobia of bees. So find the turning point in your dream. It's not necessarily a fear. It can be something that
No.
happens. I have a lot of dreams about working in restaurants because I did that in earlier parts of my life. And I will dream that I'm a waiter and I'm taking care of all these tables. And sometimes there's too much for me to do, or sometimes I didn't bring
Yeah.
my shirt with me to work or something like that. And I've been programming myself to say, okay, let me notice when, because I don't
Yeah.
work in a restaurant
At
anymore and I
what
haven't
point
in
that
years.
at what point did that dream turn?
And I can turn.
Yeah.
Yep. And a turning point also means that there might be some kind of action or scenario that happens that starts making the dream turn unpleasant or uncomfortable, brings up anxieties or fears. Try to notice these things and come up with something that you would like to do differently. You say, well, in the
Yes.
dream, I ran from the bees. I ran into her like a little girl. Okay. And then, but you
No,
say,
I ran like a marathon runner.
yeah, or a sprinting marathon runner.
Yeah.
But the point being is that you can notice when these things happen. You consciously come up with a way of responding that you would prefer to have, so that the next time it happens in the dream, like Steve did with the bees, he programmed his mind to say, I'm safe, I'm okay, and I can allow the bees to do whatever they're going to do because I'm dreaming, I'm safe, I'm okay. But then that also carried over into his waking life. The next time that the bees flew up his shorts or down his shirt or were just
Yes.
around him, he was able to respond, ability to respond in a way
Well,
that was calm.
and I would like to add one thing. As you interpret the dream or you write down the dream, circle or underline exactly where that dream took the turn,
Yeah.
but also to write down what you want to do in the
Good. Yes.
so you'll remember it at least when you wake up.
Okay. Yeah. So when you wake up and you're working with the dream and the memories are fresh and you notice the turning point, you re-script and say, well,
Ah,
if I could have had this do something different, it doesn't even mean that you had to confront the bees. You could have
no,
said, I would like to appear on a beach in Hawaii, rather than be sitting around in this other place dealing with the bees. If you
yeah,
can respond to the bees in a way, you can program your mind to respond to them in a way where you're not running away from them. That might be
that's right.
better. But baby steps, you took them. It sounds like you didn't just suddenly wake up one day with this full ability to respond.
No,
You did
I,
have to kind of, I mean, your first steps were blasting him with lightning, hitting him with fire. Actually, your first
yeah,
responses were run like hell. Your
yeah,
second layer of level
was
of
the fight.
response started becoming more proactive, but it was fight. And then your third level of response was accept and be calm. And that's
Yeah,
when you actually resolved the underlying phobia. When the bee appeared in your dreams, it was representing the phobia of bees.
that's
And
right.
eventually, by responding in a way that was the most healthy response, you were able to overcome the phobia too. And now your bees are your friends. And you even told me once that you even thought about being a beekeeper at one point.
Yes.
Eh,
Oh, I'm still thinking of it. We went to a farm the other day, and somebody showed us their beehives, and my first instinct was to start walking towards the hives, and I
Yeah.
left the whole group of people, and there I am walking towards the hives. It's like, oh, okay, maybe later.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like something is calling to you there, my friend. We've
Yeah,
gone well into this video,
this
and
is
I want
great.
to, yeah. So for students and interested parties out there who are watching this video, know that this is lesson number 1. We're going
Yes.
to have lessons 2 and beyond. I am going to apply these things as we go because my theory is that if I can learn to lucid dream, then anyone can.
Anyway,
Because even though I'm known as a dream worker and dream interpreter and whatever, I am not very aware or conscious while I'm dreaming. But I have noticed that when I put the effort in, that I start getting these responses where I do wake up while I'm dreaming, like, become aware, and that, there are things that I can start doing. I'm going to apply these things and I'm going to be kind of our guinea pig. So it's going
yeah,
to be
that's
fun.
good.
Next time
Well,
we'll talk a little more about specific techniques and stuff like that.
yes, and I'm the guinea pig too. I mean, I haven't mastered it totally and all the time or whatever else, but since I committed to doing the lessons with you, I've had more waking dreams.
Right on. Right on.
Uh,
All right. We're both still learning. So we're going to
Okay.
share what we learn with you in the next episode. Look out for this is Lucid Dreaming with Stephen Rogat, lesson 1. You can learn more about
101.
Steve at creativethought.org. And he also has books and fun stuff there, which I've read a few of them and
Yeah.
I've loved them. So Steve, thank you for sharing
Okay.
your
Thank
wisdom
you.
with us, dripping the
Thank
honey
you.
off
It's
of your
been
lips,
great.
my friend. And we'll catch up with you for the next one.
Okay. You take care.